Hey sweethearts, in today's video I'll be teaching you some advices for watercolor. And I'll divide this video in two sections. The first section being about materials and things you can use for your watercolor painting. And the second one will be advices for when you start painting, okay? Now that I've explained everything, let's start. First of all, let's get the basics. My first advice for you is you have 2 cups of water, okay? And it can be whatever thing, a glass or something you want, but it just have to be for watercolor, obviously. So you have to have 2 cups of water, one for paint, well, for cleaning the paint. Well, both of them are for cleaning the paint, but this one, for example, I'll use it for the major painting, and this is like a second wash for when you have taken most of the paint. You use the second one. This is useful because you can have, like, when you use whatever a dark color and you use a yellow or something, that it's pretty easy to get muddy and not have the same tone as you want. So you clean it with this or with this, whatever, with one of them, and then you pass it to the next one. It's like a double cleaning and help you make your colors much vibrant than before. Another thing I recommend you to buy or whatever, it's get a ceramic palette or a ceramic plate that help you mix the colors. And this is actually pretty important because if you have like a plastic one, for example, that is bad, you can start with anything actually. And I actually start with a plastic one, but this is pretty useful because, like, I don't know if you have noticed, but in the plastic ones you actually have, like, you put water and it all stays like on a big drop, and in the ceramic it all like expands, as you can see in here. Everything like expands and stays where you want it to stay. And this is actually pretty useful for when you want to mix colors. And, like, for example, in here I mix with this blue, with this black, and as you can see, there's here this space for when you can mix. And this is pretty well. You can get one of these. I actually bought it in my local supermarket or my local store, whatever. But you can actually just use a kitchen plate, or yeah, it's not like that much necessary. It's just I found this one and I thought it would be perfect. But if you don't have to actually put a lot of money. This was actually pretty cheap, and I swear it's a pretty good inversion for this, you know. The next thing is tape. I use this clear tape, but I'm pretty sure you can use like washi tape or masking tape. But this is pretty important because you paste it for prevent it to bend or buckle or whatever. Because when you put water in a paper, that's what happens, even with watercolor paper, obviously. Because it just like pop off. I don't know if you have seen it, but it does that, and this is for keep the painting where it is, and it also creates a actually pretty cute border in your painting. I personally recommend that you paste it with a notebook. Well, in the back of a notebook like this one, for example, as you can see, it's pasted that clear tape, because you can move it along, you can manipulate it. If you need to see, for example, the lighting, you can change it. And so I recommend doing this in the back of a notebook instead of just pasting it in a table, but that's kind of my personal preference. The last thing I wanted to say in this section is having a paper that shows all the colors you own. For example, I have this one, and it's in Spanish, but it says Guía de Colores or color guide. And as you can see, I have everything, every color I have right now, and how it will look on paper. this is actually useful because even though the envelopment or the outside might see this, you might see this, but it's actually not the same color it is, but it's best to have it in paper because you can actually see how it will look on paper. And if you have seen all my videos or some of my videos, you've noticed that I always have this beside me because when I want to use a new color, I just see which color in this and decide it, and for when I take the paint. So this actually won't take you long, and you can do like decorates or whatever. But I do think this is a useful thing to have for when the time of painting comes. So yes. So in this second section of the video, I just want to mention that if you see any difference from the lighting or whatever, it's because when I was editing this whole second half, the audio just got screwed and now I have to film it all again. Yay. First, we have the wet on wet or the wet and dry technique. And the advice for this is, you have to put water first, but when do you know that is enough water? And the point of this will be the paper be just glossy without any pools of water in it. So you just have to pass it all over the areas you want to be the water in, and then you'll just be careful. Like I said, for using a notebook, you can actually move the notebook and see with your lighting if it has any pools or if it's okay. So that'll be for the wet and wet or wet and dry techniques, where you have to first put the water. Now, the second advice I give you is for making thin lines. For making thin lines, it's kind of complicated, but I recommend you to with the hand you paint, right? You gain stability with the other hand. You use the other hand to move, so you can have a certain stability, and you don't move and you don't tremble or whatever, because the other hand will avoid that. Another thing in this is try to move all your arm, because in this case we as painters or as drawers or artists in paper or whatever, or in digital, we use a lot of our wrist, and this can in the long term be damaging to us. So I recommend you to learn to use all your hand while drawing, or your arm from this to this, your toe, your fingers, because if we rely too much on our wrist movement, it will be damaging in the long term, right? Now, what about the moment you start sketching? For example, this is a mistake that I actually made myself, and I was doing a painting, and I always erase the sketches a little bit so it doesn't show up in the final painting, right? But I didn't notice that this painting will take a lot of layers. So when I was like the third layer or so, and it were like the colors were getting darker and darker, I couldn't see my sketch anymore. So it was difficult because I was lost, because I didn't know exactly where to put the paint. I ended up solving it by logic and how it will look, the expectations. But this is the thing you actually have to take in account. Like if you for example you know that your paint will take a few layers or will be mostly on light colors, then I recommend you to erase a little bit the sketch, just enough you can see it, right? But if you for example are doing like a lot of layers, or you're gonna put a lot of dark colors, I recommend you to mostly leave it as it is, because it will still have the lines even though you put a lot of layers, so you don't get lost. I think this is really important actually, and you have to take it in account and think like forward, like how much layers, what colors I'm gonna use before doing it, so you can plan the sketch part. Now, this last part might seem a little bit obvious, but I think I really need to mention it because you can really you can really have mistaken in here, and it's you have to be patient. Okay, I know you know between layers there's a certain like waiting time you have for the layer to be completely dry. So I really recommend you that if you are going from the technique that you need to wait a layer, you need to wait to a layer to dry, have patience, like check your phone or go or walk for a bit or tag with someone, whatever. Or well, you can use a hair dryer. That's another thing if you are very impatient. I don't know how it works actually because I don't use it. I have one, but I don't use it because I like the wetting, and I don't know if it can like push the paint in place I don't want it to. So I don't have much knowledge in that. But you can use a hair dryer if you're impatient. But if you wanna wait, just wait. Except that's what you're going for. Of course, there are some techniques that actually use the painting when the water is completely dry of the first layer or the past layer, and it's like for created like the focus or not focus pictures or just backsides or whatever. This is kind of up to you, but if you're going for the technique for wait a first layer to dry, just let it dry and really have patience because all of this is kind of about patience. Now, all of these tips I've based it on my experience so far in watercolors. And if you wanna see me doing another video of this type, then comment it in down below. And when I'm more experimented and I have made more paintings and I had more time in this, I'll be sure to make another video with another set of advices that you can use. This have been all for today's video, and I really hope you like it. And if you like it, be sure to like it obviously and subscribe if you want to watch more of my content. And remember, be creative, be happy, and more important, be yourself.